All right, all right. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. My name is Malcolm. Thank you so much for being here at CreaTV Presents, the Is That Jazz panel discussion. I have some really good friends here with me today to really just talk about jazz music. If you do not know, this month, the month of April, is Jazz Appreciation Month. So with CreaTV, we wanted to go ahead and just put on something for jazz music. So we brought some local heavy hitters here to just talk about jazz music. First of all, thank you everybody for coming through. I know that my family is in the building. I know my dad's gonna be in the building, and a shout out Veronica, shout out Khalid. Thank y'all so much for being here. Very excited to have y'all here, and I really hope y'all enjoy. So let me just do some let me just take care of some housekeeping real quick and let you all know a little bit more about CreaTV and about what we're doing. As you know, everybody that's in the building right now is actually really close to me. So as you know, you probably all remember when I started working at CreaTV about 9 months ago. Since then, I am now in the community department, and I get to put on just dope things like this for the community. So I actually have something written down to make sure that I hit all the notes, because y'all know how it is. Okay, yeah, cool. So CreaTV San Jose is a nonprofit community media access center that serves the communities of San Jose by providing educational equipment, spaces, and platforms so that our communities can harness the media as a way to create change. CreaTV Presents is our monthly speaker and event series where we invite community shapers to talk about their work in the present and their future dreams for the city of San Jose. So I would like to extend a thank you to the Office of Cultural Affairs for sponsoring CreaTV Presents and giving us the opportunity to gather here today. All right. So what we're gonna do today is I'm going to introduce my panelists. I have 3 panelists, and we also have Caitlin in the building. Caitlin is one of my coworkers, and she will be handling some of the technical things on the Zoom. Caitlin is also in the chat right now. So if you're wondering why the chat is booming and why there's so much great information in the chat, thank Caitlin for that. As well as if like you ask a question, if somebody gets back to you, it's Caitlin. So shout out Caitlin for helping us out today. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over our panelists. I'm going to introduce everybody, and they're all going to have like a minute to speak to you individually. And then after that, we're going to go into a panel discussion. I have some questions just to get the discussion heated up. But knowing these 3, I highly doubt that I'll get through even half of my questions, which actually is very exciting. After I do my panel, after I ask my questions, my selfish questions, after I ask those, we will open it up to a Q&A with you all. All right, so any attendee right now can ask a question. We actually have a Q&A function that you should be able to see on your screen. If you click that, if you put a question in there, you could put a question, you can ask a question at any time. If you're asking a question to an individual person, just go ahead and put their name in there. They will be able to answer in the chat if they like, but we will have time towards the end to ask and to answer questions. So even if you don't feel like typing it into the chat, I'll still leave some time at the end for you to ask any questions. Other than that, I'm super juiced to let's start introducing our panelists, huh? All right, so let me minimize this screen a little bit so I can see my pretty face. Okay, so our first panelist who I would like to introduce. So I'll tell you, I met Joy over at Nirvana Soul, which if you do not know is a Black-owned coffee shop here in San Jose. And they also put on like a lot of dope events for the culture out here in San Jose. Probably one of the dopest spots if you're downtown San Jose that you have to visit. She was hosting an open mic but then just multi-talented, hosting the open mic, singing, playing piano. And I had the pleasure of meeting Joy sometime last year. But already is like a little sis to me. So I'm really glad that you're here, Joy. If you don't mind, you can come off, you can show your screen, you can come off mute. Let me just, while she's here, I like to have people listen to their bios, listen to people talk about.
Oh man.
So let me read your bio, Joy, and then I'll give you a minute or two to say anything that you would like.
Sounds good.
All right, so Joy, hailing from San Jose, California, this 23-year-old jazz school dropout turned rhinestone rebel looks to bring a unique style of synth-heavy, hip-hop influenced pop music to the world. Studying jazz piano and music technology brings a futuristic sound, but stays rooted in the pop structure. Her upcoming debut project, Energies, is slated for spring 2022. All right, Joy, is there anything you would like to say to the people?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Malcolm, thank you so much for bringing me on. Yeah, I think we met sometime last year. You were just walking by Nirvana Soul, saw the music and came in, had your drums with you already and just like tore it up. So it was amazing that you slid through. And yeah, once again, my name's Joy. I went to San Jose State for jazz studies and I almost completed it, but out of this weird technicality, I had 8 units that I just needed to take. And this was like a school thing, but I did all my jazz studies. I did my music technology studies there as well. So I was focused on synthesizer recording. And then after that, I was just in the jazz scene in San Jose doing, not only sound engineering, but playing as a jazz pianist and a salsa pianist. But then starting in end of 2019, I started switching my sound to focus more on writing and production. And from there, I switched back to focusing on pop and focusing on like a performance-based thing. But regardless of that, my respect for jazz still stays around, even though my opinions have morphed over the years, like through schooling and also through life. So I'm really excited to sort of pay my respects to jazz this month and expand on what jazz really is and what we claim it to be. So I appreciate you. And thank you, CreaTV, for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. So, full transparency, because this is a family affair here. Yeah, Joy sent me like a whole new bio right now. And like reading the bio just made me even more excited. And reading the new bio just made me more excited and just let me know like, oh yes, I chose the perfect people for this panel. We're really blessed to have you, Joy. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
I want to introduce another one of my brothers. This was one of when I was like really young in the music world, like actually like doing gigs and doing shows, drumming. When I was younger, like this is years ago, I can't even remember how long ago, but I remember doing a show with a group called Tabia, and Tabia is a very, big time women's theater ensemble out here in San Jose. And they had this pianist playing with them, this younger cat, kind of like could be like my older brother, the coolest dude you'll ever meet. I swear, if you ever get his number and you get to call him and you hear his voicemail, you'll just know like, oh wow, that dude is cooler than your refrigerator right now, I'll tell you that. So my brother Bennet, if you don't mind showing your screen and coming off mute while I put you on the spot and read this wonderful ginormous essay of a bio that you have. All right, so very blessed to have Bennet Roth. Newell is a pianist, keyboardist, composer, arranger, MC, producer, and multi-genre music educator based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Bennet began piano lessons when he was 7 years old, and by the age of 10 became fascinated with jazz. After playing mostly classical music during his first few years of studying piano, Bennet set off on a path of learning jazz standards and immersed himself in the music of jazz giants, especially of legendary jazz pianist Dave Brubeck, Thelonious Monk, and Bill Evans. While practicing determinedly to develop his sound on the piano as an improviser, starting as a teenager, he also found a love in hip hop music and began honoring his craft as a lyricist, recording artist, producer, and live performer. So, Bennet, I want to give you the floor. Is there anything you would like to add or just say to the people before we start?
That cooler than a refrigerator is probably going to be something I'm going to take from now on, man, and see if I can mold that into some sort of, lyrical finesse. So thank you for that, Malcolm. Oh man, I'm blessed to be here and grateful to be on this panel and share some, I think, real cool experiences and our takes here on the music that has shaped all y'all's and all of us's existence here for sure. But yeah, I definitely remember the distinctly that first interaction, that first link we had. I want to say it was like 2011 or 12. So going on somewhere in the decade-long, the decade-long friendship here. And yeah, shout out to Tobias, shout out to all the folks there that have put on that ensemble and sort of that theatrical and musical connection, which led us to linking up and doing gigs and doing things like this for the community. So appreciate having me on here, man.
Blessings. The pleasure is all mine. Okay, and last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce another one of my brothers. And this man, like when I first met him, I can't remember how we first met, but I do remember like our first studio session and getting him in the lab and actually sitting down and seeing this man on the drums and seeing how he has this infinite amount of stamina, energy, and rhythmic intellect on the drums is just crazy. It's just amazing. If you know this dude, then you know. If you don't, you're about to find out. This is one of the man. You can have a great conversation with this dude. You could call him about anything, and he will have something to say. He's not going to leave you high and dry. He'll have something like powerful to say. So I'm very glad that he's on this panel. So Clay, if you don't mind coming to the screen, and that way I can read this bio that I think Clay forgot about this bio. So when I was reading it, he was like, oh, damn, I did do that. Sometimes when you're in it for so long, you forget all the achievements that you have. So Clay Bandy is known for his natural feels and smooth grooves. Clay is one of the Bay Area's finest drummers. At age 18, this self-taught drummer was called upon to tour around the world with America's most popular worship leader, the Professor of Praise, Dr. Cannoli. This experience developed Clay's band management and music entrepreneurial skills. Shortly after touring, Clay began networking and performing with dozens of local musicians while playing with local band 650 Connection. Clay has also held down the pocket for one of the Bay Area's heavy hitters, Ron E. Beck, who's the former drummer of Tower of Power in his Soul City band. So Clay, if you don't mind telling the people one or two things about you or anything that I left out, the floor is yours.
Man, I appreciate it. I love having fun. I love music, and I'm very thankful to be on this panel. It's really cool that you called and added me to this panel, man. I appreciate it. I forgot about that bio. Not the experience, but what was written. It was really cool to have someone write something like that about me. At a young age, I did go out, just by happenstance, being in certain groups and connecting with certain people. There's certain opportunities you get, and you can decide to take it or not. I decided to take it, and it panned out to teach me a lot. I'm still on this musical journey. I still got a lot to learn, but it was very wonderful experience. But yeah, that's I don't know if I can add too much to that. That was it was interesting to hear. So thank you.
Hey, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you to whoever wrote that, and then thank you to you for putting in the work so that you could have a dope bio. All right, so just as a reminder, I am about to get into the panel, but just as a reminder for everybody, there is a Q&A function. So if you have any questions, comments, or funny stories, go ahead and throw them in the Q&A. And again, thank you, Caitlin, for handling the chat. The chat is booming. I don't know if you noticed, but like the bios were popping up when people were popping up. So thank you so much, Caitlin. And without further ado, let's get into this. Let's get into this first question, if you all do not mind. So the way I'm doing like these questions, since I know everybody and I've spoken with everybody, I'm going to ask individuals to start off certain questions. So I'm gonna pose certain questions to certain people, and then whoever wants to chime in afterwards, let's do it. All right. So Clay, you were actually probably one of the first people I spoke to about the panel, and we had a long discussion, which really helped me like shape the panel and really like mold the panel. So I would like to ask you, in terms of jazz music, what role does structure play in jazz music?
Well, it's very interesting that you say structure, because in its active state, it doesn't seem like this structure. Matter of fact, you do want to vibe with it, but there is a language that you need to understand. And the structure starts, I believe, with the language. There's some basic formats. If in each player has that understanding, right? For the percussionist or the drummer, you got to understand maybe on your left foot, you may need to hit certain notes on like your 2 and 4, you're opening and closing the hi-hat, and your foot's kind of doing like this. So you learn certain constructs and certain basic patterns first, right? And that's kind of like when you're starting to play it, right? Ultimately, your ear is your first process of your structure. You got to hear it. You fall in love with it. You hear things that you can't do. You hear things that you want to do, then you hear things that just moves you. So there's absolutely a certain structure to it. I mean, you can be taught it, right? Or you can listen to it long enough to where you embrace it and you can hear it in between. Like you can hear basic patterns, no matter, how complicated the music or your piece is written. The beauty of learning it or reading it is you can see the specific structure for that tune or for that sound or for that, that vibe of jazz. You have different styles of jazz, right? So the beauty of music, it moves, right? It does its own thing. It goes in different directions. But I guess to answer your question would be, it's for me, it's learning and listening to the basic formats, right, to create the structure, because we can build all kinds of things, but understanding where you want to start and what you like most that's where the structure starts at. Go with your feeling and dive into why do you like that. If it's Latin jazz, traditional jazz, contemporary jazz, what is bringing you to this point? That's where your structure starts, in my opinion.
All right, thank you. Yeah, very, very interesting like notes in there for sure. For sure, it's going to lead us to some other discussions. I'm taking notes. If you all see me looking down, I'm just taking notes. Bennet or Joy, do you have anything you would like to add? What is the role of structure in jazz music?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to jump in real quick. I agree with everything you said. And I really want to emphasize that you said using your ear is essential. You have to, because going to jazz school, like you learn how to notate everything, which of course is important because that's just another language, another way to communicate. And so that if you're on a gig day of, you don't have time to talk, it's all right there. But using your ear can allow you to really internalize these structures. And I think one thing that I like, especially being a younger person, we get excited with, oh, I want to add this, I want to add this and add this. You can't break a structure without actually knowing it. So we write it down. We think, okay, cool, AABA, I got it, whatever. It's easy. And then we start tearing it up without even internalizing it. So you have to, and to me, that's also just recognizing tradition. The structure doesn't come from anywhere. It's been developed and developed. Like AABA isn't just something someone made up. So if you don't internalize it, there's no way you can build off of it. And yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Joy. Bennett, and I also just want to give acknowledgement to Vieira, who just came in the building. So shout out, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So we're on the question. I posed the question: what is the role of structure within jazz music? Clay spoke on it, Joy spoke on it, and now we're going to give Bennett the floor.
I mean, I think there's no doubt jazz needs structure in order for it to be both played effectively and absorbed and listened concretely by an audience or by a listener when they put the records on or something. On the surface level, for maybe an ear who's new to jazz or is starting to get to know the music, it may come off as random or it may come off as trivial music, but it's far from that. There's a whole lot of methods going on. And the emphasis that Clay and Joy mentioned about the use of the ear is so very keen because there's so much conversation happening in jazz, and especially in the improvisational moments that are going on in it. You know, when folks are watching, you know, highly skilled ensembles perform, this is a demonstration of everybody's ear being like really, you know, functioning high. Just like when you would have a conversation in a group or even just a conversation between two people, there needs to be sort of logical, you know, back and forth. There needs to be repartee happening, right? That is relevant, right? Y'all wouldn't have a conversation about, you know, your favorite cereal, and then all of a sudden somebody start talking about, you know, oh, I like going outside and playing in the rain. Huh? We're not on that. So right, that, you know, to put that back into the musical context of it, right, that would be random, but jazz very much ain't random. Jazz is very much fueled in a direction, depending on, like you were saying, Clay, depending on the style of it, the genre of it, the, you know, the size of a group, the instrumentation of a group. So the direction will certainly be fueled by all sorts of elements, and even all the way down to the kind of audience that's listening to it. It will certainly be. I mean, it's an interactive language, and between listeners and performers, it's all kind of all hinges on all those things together, especially in a live setting, because when the notes are played there, it's like it's irreplicable. Once the notes are played and the claps are had and the hoots and hollers are had, like that was one moment that will forever just live right there.
Oh yeah, thank you all. I actually want to stick with you, Bennett, right now. I actually want to pose a question to yourself. It's really based off of something that Clay said when Clay was answering his question. I remember, Clay, you said that the structure can be like, you can learn it. You said you can learn it by yourself, or you can kind of learn it, like be taught it. And I'm paraphrasing right now. But it kind of makes me want to pose a question to Bennett. Bennett, with jazz music and with the structure of jazz music, is it something that can be learned exclusively on the bandstand, or is it something that can be learned exclusively in an institution?
On my opinion, I think it is best to have experiences in both. I don't think it can just be all in one. It can't all be in one setting, because there's certain things in the classroom that you won't get on the bandstand, and vice versa. But again, musicians who want to really pursue jazz music, improvised music, contemporary music, you know, and those things that can all sort of be fused, there's probably at this point multiple avenues to get good at it and get experienced. Coming from what I did as a student and learning the instrument and then learning the music, it was very much a give and take of learning things from instructors and trying to hone those things in a practice room or make good on them in assignments or classes. But then it was also very much hinged upon making those things applicable in performance settings or in recording session settings. So for that, I feel grateful that I got to, get some wisdom from high level professors or high level educators who were, who were emphasizing the things like that you should practice and study and internalize, memorize. And then I'm also very thankful for the moments of like, you could almost say it's like on the job learning where, whatever I got, out of a certain gig, an experience, a moment of, whether I was like, making mistakes and trying to correct things on the fly, right? Or even just reflections on the end of a performance, things like that. Like those were things that would never show up in a syllabus per se, So for me, it's a humbling to get that education of this music in a variety of instances, both within a educational institution and both within the school of life.
Right on. Yeah, thank you. Quick question. I'm gonna pose that question to Clay and Joy, but I just wanted to ask a personal question based on your bio. It said that you started with classical music, and then you begin to fall in love with jazz music. What was it like? What was the turning point like? And I'm assuming that you were taught classical music, which is just an assumption, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you were taught classical music with a teacher. And then how did jazz music come upon you, and like how did it seep into your soul so quickly?
I was really fortunate that I had a private instructor when I started taking lessons one-on-one. I was 7, 8 years old. I had a private instructor named Janet Summers who was well-versed in both classical music and jazz repertoire. So when I took lessons from her, I was actually coming from a after-school program I had done like as a kindergarten kid, where basics of music were being taught, like everything just from like how to, sing, basic pitches and learn the notes on an instrument, be that piano or mallet percussion or kind of like the basic things, like they were giving all the kids recorders, right? So be able to do that. And then basic reading, just read, sort of nursery rhyme songs or things like that. So, that was even just kind of establishing just sort of musical basics and traditions. And so that was, I think my teacher, Janet Summers at the time, was seeing the progression there. So she gave me some early, piano music, classical music more so to continue to get technique built and crafted. But I think she also saw, as I was learning this music, that there was a different spark than just playing, the standards of classical, if you will, and started also, inundating our lessons with reading songs out of like the Jazz Real Book, and then starting to do things like listening to solos and transcribing things and ear training, things like that. So I think she recognized that, and I might have shown this excitement or shown this zest for trying to get outside playing, just any music that was for piano and only piano kind of thing. So I'm grateful to that, because I got exposed to a whole different side of music, which basically exposed to then a whole different side of a whole different side of culture and a whole different side of lifestyle, because jazz no doubt is all part of the music, but it goes way beyond just the notes too. It gets embedded into much more things on a bigger society level too.
All right, cool. Yeah, thank you. Hey, shout out Janice was
Janet, yeah.
Janet, shout out Janet. It takes a good teacher, right? It takes
Yes,
a good
it does.
which actually is very it parallels the question that I asked, right? I also want to pose the question to Clay and Joy. Joy, do you mind if I pose the question to you first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the question was, can jazz, in your opinion, in your respectable opinion, can jazz be learned only on the bandstand, and or can it be learned only in the institution?
So I think I'll first say that it depends on the person. It really depends on what kind of mindset you're coming in with. And it brings me kind of to a slight disagreement, because I don't think jazz can solely be learned in an institution, but I do think it can be solely learned on the bandstand. And I think, and I have a few issues with like sort of the way art is put into schools. But I will say, and I did go to school for jazz, so I'm not going to discredit all of the experiences I had there. But I think to kind of compare it to another thing, I think of it similar as like taking a workshop or an intensive. I've been looking at like UX and coding in the tech world. If you take a coding workshop, it does not mean you're going to get a job at Google. You still have to learn how to network. You still have to learn how to do your resume and apply and all these other kinds of things. And jazz is similar to that, or music in general and art in general is similar to that, if not more intense, because all the things we put into the curriculum in schools is based off of things in the bandstand. Like these, it's not like science where it's developed in a lab and tested. It's tested out in real life, and it's based off of emotion and opinions, not anything quite quantifiable. So I will say, I was just a kid who was good in school. Like I just knew like how to do assignments, and that was the easiest way for me to learn things. If you gave me homework, I would do it, and then I would know the material. So if you're that type of person, it could really help fast track your experience. But I did feel like from focusing so hard on school, I lost some lessons that I had to learn later, and only through getting out of school and diving deep into the gig world is where I learned that. And I did a little bit of it while I was in school too, but the gigging world will just, to be honest, it'll teach you in a much harsher way, which I think is the way. You have to show up to a gig and not have the right cable and get yelled at because they said, I'm paying you $150. How do you not have an amp? You know what I mean? Like there's that, and that's not even a theory thing. That's not a tech thing. That's a adult thing. I will say though, in school, the biggest thing to take advantage of, and my professor actually told me this before I even got there, is those private lessons. And you don't have to go to school to get private lessons. It's nice because you have a whole plethora of experienced musicians, like 5 to 10 of them, depending on your school, right in front of you, who you can go to at any time. But if you don't go to school, and if you know you're not a classroom type person, go to these gigs, walk up to them and just start asking them questions. Because first of all, if I was at a gig, someone wants to ask me about my music, let me talk for 2 hours. I got you, And then even from there, you can build a relationship, start taking lessons. And then also from there, they might say, hey, you're ready. I need you to sub for me for this gig. Actually, that's what Bennet was doing with me. I totally forgot. He was like one of my first like real gigs was like Bennet saying, hey, I can't make this. I know you're a competent pianist. Can you come in and help me out? And experiences I learned from those are different. Same with Clay. I got gigs from Clay too. Working with other musicians, all that. That's where you really learn one-on-one with people, because schools are just taking those one-on-one lessons and just putting them in a different structure that doesn't work for me. Didn't end up working for me. So that's why I was out. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for that, Joy. Thank you. Yeah, I knew this question was going to be the one.
I didn't go too. I want to keep it a little bit nice because I did learn, but talk to me afterwards and you'll see the real.
Yeah. Yeah.
The real.
Behind closed doors, you know.
Oh yeah.
Joy would be tearing up her room right now if we weren't on CreaTV. No, I'm just kidding. All right, which is why, Clay, for this question, which is why I'd like you to bring us home with this question. What is your opinion, Clay? What is your personal opinion? Can jazz be learned only on a bandstand? Can jazz be learned only in an institution, or is it both?
Well, I will say, I'll start off with my experience, right? Obviously, my experience came from being excited, being happy, and watching people play drums in church and musicians around me, some of my family. So I'm definitely like learning from the experience type of thing. Never going to school to play music was something that later it was like, I wish I would have done it just for the experience, not so much like, they're going to show me everything. But it was one of those things that I would have liked to have, but because it didn't happen, it didn't take away from my growth. I still can grow. So to answer your question, I believe you're going to be a bit more well-rounded if you do have the experience in both, because life is the experience, right? The journey is what teaches you. You're going to learn certain structures, which is correct in your schooling. And depending on what type of instructor that you have, they may be also able to show you some things to where they can help you expand your mind a bit while you're listening to what you love to listen to. I always think about what you like to listen to, because that's what you more fast. You hear it, you feel it, you do it, you play it, right? My experience learning jazz came from a trumpet player that was in a big church band that I was playing in, which, where I met Ron Canoli at. And I was the kid in the band. In a sense, I was the youngest cat in the band. And I usually was the youngest cat in the band, which is the other way. If you're going to learn something, usually probably want to be the youngest cat in the band. You're definitely going to learn something real quick, real fast. And then when they heat of the moment, you're going to be like, nope. Then someone's going to look at you and say, So I learned a lot of like having to make adjustments at the gig, on the gig. I was on tour, 18 years old. How much experience do you think I've had? I mean, literally 10 years ago, I was 8, before I was 18, right? So I wasn't on the earth that long. So learning these things in live settings, the ability to travel and do that, for me was very influential in helping me learn on the gig and learning, for instance, calypso music. I know you're talking about jazz, but the idea of like learning something while you're on the gig because you have to play tonight. Here's a pattern. I've had conga players. A lot of my experiences were in church. So I had a conga player that knew Latin rhythms and knew jazz rhythms and Latin jazz rhythms. And he plays certain rhythms and say, okay, I know you don't know this, so follow my hand, follow this rhythm and play this on the hi-hat. And, so I had to learn it that way. Mm-hmm. It was some of the best experiences because it made me be very uncomfortable. And there's an audience, there's a church of like, 2,500 people and sitting in seats. It's a lot of like pressure. And so it's very different than the gig, but still a lot of pressure too. Your natural local type of gigs. But when you're in a setting that's designed for multiple people to come in, that therefore part of the purpose is to enjoy the music, right? It's going to assist them and affect them. Jazz does that, right? It makes you feel a certain way. So I think you have to you want to do both, even if you didn't learn it from the younger age as a structured setting or a school setting. I think it's very important to push yourself to learn how to read some notes, learn how to interpret these the language from that perspective. Without that, you may see that there's some limitations. And if you want to live it that way and do it that way, that's your choice and prerogative. But if you really want to answer your question, I think there's both is very important, because they both have their role. They both have their role, and you're going to feel that role. You're going to feel the differences between the two.
Right on. Yeah. Thank you, Clay. Thank you for appreciate your experience, appreciate the knowledge, and thank you for bringing us home. I actually want to so like a couple things that everybody said that was like inspiring to me. Early on, Bennet, I think maybe when you were giving your intro, or maybe it was when you were answering the first question, but I do remember you just talking. It was about structure. I do remember you talking about like structure kind of allows the beginner jazz listener whose ears might not be tuned to jazz music. It kind of gives us a structure to actually enjoy the flow. Like a structure will give us will make it audible for us to actually listen to a solo. To us, where if it's like some very advanced jazz music, for somebody who's just listening to it, their ears might not be tuned to the rhythms of advanced jazz. So to them, it might sound, frustrating, like intellectually frustrating, because they don't really know what's going on. For me personally, my introduction into jazz music was through hip hop music. So it was hip hop. It was the structure, excuse me, it was the structure of the hip hop music that really opened my ears to listen to like jazz chords, and then to start noticing the difference between like, oh, that's a jazz sample that was chopped up there. Even if it's the same boom bap drums, like that's the jazz sample. So for me, it's almost funny that like it was electronic music. It was hip hop, which is an electronic musical art form, that tuned my ears to the intricacies of jazz music. So I'd like to pose this question to Joy, because I feel like she's just like right now, just the boss of like bringing this electronic and this jazz together. So Joy, I just want to know, like, and then let me, if this question is irrelevant, let me know, okay? But is there a line between like pop and hip hop music and jazz music? Is there a line, and where is that line? Like, when do we say like Flying Lotus, that beat is not a hip hop beat, that's a jazz beat? When do we say, oh, Kamasi Washington, that's not a jazz, that's a hip hop beat? Where is that line?
This is a great question, and I do not have an answer for you, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about this. First of all, I am in no way any type of boss with the electronic, with the fusion. I'm just following the people who were before me, because there's some crazy futuristic electronic, I don't even know what to call it, people out there that like on the Nick Semrad. Honestly, he's just a goat for it all. Follow anybody who's working with Nick Semrad. But I think now is the time where there's a lot of questions on what that line is, because it's sort of for me, just from like what I've been observing, I was seeing it start to pop up with Hiatus Coyote, that favorite of all time, because the way their band works is Naipom, the main singer, she grew up on Stevie Wonder and like Australian indigenous music. So there's of course that indigenous aspect, but a lot of the writing is very like R&B, but sort of pop in a sense, where it's straightforward in that like sort of basic structure. But then in her band behind her, one of them's named Simon. I forget the rest of their names though. I'm so ashamed. But the rest of the band members, especially the keyboard player and synth player, they're heavily trained in jazz, and they bring all of this depth to the music behind a very simple melody. And they weren't the first ones to do it, but I feel like they were a group who really, really made it click and made it I wouldn't say they like fully popularized it, but even now they're sort of in the mainstream with their new album, and their song Red Room is like, I'm hearing people who listen to like just trap and have never listened to jazz, listen to Hiatus Coyote, which is mind-blowing to me. And I think the newest development in jazz is blurring that line, because I'm again, this is something that's like, I'm sure it's like not fully new right now, but in the past 20 years, it's been all about just everyone, like, let's say there's a range from jazz to pop, everyone's finding their little niche and where they sit. So I think there was a line, and now it's, because I don't even know what to call the music I make. I don't know what to call the music I listen to. And that's why there was like 4 different genres in my bio, because who knows what it is anymore. And what I'm liking is people embracing the influence of jazz in everything, and then also embracing that sort of the point of jazz was that it could be anything. You know what I mean? Of course, respecting the original structures, respecting the history, but like Flying Lotus is definitely coming from jazz. There's no denying that. And Kamasi is a little more like closer on that range. But also if you tried to call one of his tunes at a jazz jam, good luck. But and even
you better have the chart ready.
Oh, you better have the chart ready. But even if you have that chart, I don't know if how many pages is that going to be?
Yeah.
Is there like I don't know if there's a format like that. And then on the other side of it, now at jazz jams, people are calling this Rihanna tune called James Joint. That's a super popular call. And Kendrick Lamar's, was it Untitled 5? It has that riff, like a really cool riff in 5. I don't remember the counts, but people are calling rap and pop tunes, because I consider Rihanna as a pop artist, at jazz jams. And at some places like out here, you better know James Joint. You know, it has the same structure, even though this is on Rihanna's last. I need her to put out another album, but her last album. And so the line's just getting more and more and more blurred. And I think that's a great thing. And I think that it's tough, because I think we might have to ditch the idea of genres. And that's just what I'm seeing happening, because there's two future soul, neo soul, like future synth. I don't know all these names. It might just be time to be music and just state your influences to help guide people. But there might not be lines anymore. I don't know.
All right, yeah, Joy, the way you ended it kind of brings me into another question. And I see Bennet in the chat right here, and
I appreciate it.
People, you can see people when they move and whatnot, when they get excited. You see the little spinal cord do things. I can tell that you for sure sparked some things right now with both Bennet and Clay. Before I move to the next question, which is going to be on genre, Clay, Bennet, is there anything that you would like to say about the line between like jazz and other music? Like, for instance, Bennet, I know yourself to be a hip hop artist as well. So I'm actually very interested to see if you think that there is a line and where it is, or again, like I said to Joy, if it's irrelevant, because Joy basically just talked for like 7 minutes and then was like, but it's irrelevant.
This is all just prose.
The thing you said, Joy, that was, I feel like is like, could have been the headline of that of that dialogue you gave was that jazz influenced everything. And it's kind of hard to debate that, because all the way down to like the chord progressions of artists, especially artists in this contemporary time that are, that are using, I guess, what might be called like jazzy sounds or jazzy production, right? Or jazz influenced melodies or chord progressions or forms or time signatures, right? All that. It's coming like straight up off like the everything. And yeah, I mean, it's getting to be, I almost compare it, and I've done this for a long time now, just because of my personal background. It's getting to be where the progression of music, especially from how jazz music has influenced it, is becoming the progression of the game of basketball. Because we used to have a game of basketball where there was defined positions. You're 5'10", you play point guard. You are 6'10", you play center. But now it's positionless basketball, it seems to be. And at the same time, jazz and basketball are this improvisational element and concept, one side in music, the other side in athletics. But there is very much a flow of read and react and converse, but within their two respective mediums. And the same thing might be like with the side of music, because it's becoming, like you're saying, Joy, genre-less performance, genre-less listening. You could go to look at the calendar on the upcoming month of Yoshi's right now, which has always been deemed as the jazz club, I would say, right, within the Bay Area. But if you go and look at that calendar, you might see everything from Talib Kweli and Warren G and Music Soul Child, right, to to Roy Ayers and Robert Glasper, and all of that is cool, essentially, right? Because it's seemingly emanated from a jazz, a jazz family tree, essentially. Or if jazz is at the top of the family tree there, right there, and the branches are, jutting out from one side to the other, it's probably basically because it's becoming that sound that jazz initially gave birth to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very good points, especially with the like looking at the lineups of jazz clubs. You're right. You're very right. Like, and then, but nobody's not. I'm not gonna question that. I'm not gonna question like, oh, Kweli, Warren G and Music Soul Child at a jazz club. Yeah, it makes sense to me. Yeah, that's very acceptable to me. I'm not gonna question it, because it's like it's almost genreless, like you're saying.
And that's a development though of how it has, right, how it's progressed. Because you could have gone to Yoshi's back in 1997, and you only would have seen McCoy Tyner for 2 nights, and then you only so McCoy Tyner, right, almost like no argument there, he's jazz, right? So you're gonna see McCoy, and then Keith Jarrett will be here next week, no argument, jazz piano player. And then you'll have Nicholas Payton come next week, no argument there, jazz trumpet player, right? But so has gone life, or so has gone like the likings or the developments of music. And especially going back to what you were saying, Malcolm, about a hip hop driven rise or a hip hop driven surge. Like hip hop has, no doubt, I think, said, thank you, jazz. We're going to take what you have offered, and we're going to make some spins on it, but still be very much paying homage to the groundwork you laid.
Yeah, thank you. And Benny, you're also getting love for your analogy with the jazz music being like basketball.
That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely, I was like, okay, yeah, where's he going? I was thinking like basketball back in the early 1900s and whatnot. But then, like when you said it, I was like, oh man, I played basketball all 4 years in high school. And since that time to now, I'm like, yo, I don't even know if I could coach.
Ah,
I don't even know what's going on. Clay, would you like to bring us home on this question in terms of where I'd like you to talk about the question, like where is that line drawn to you? If there is a line, if it's irrelevant, let me know. But then I also want you to go into like, what is genre? What role did it play? And what role do you see it playing 10 years from now?
So is there a line? There are lines, right? How definitive they are, that's going to depend on the situation that you're in or what you want to create. Shout out to CreaTV. So let's think about it, right? We're hearing the voicing and creative mindset of the artists that are putting it together, that maybe have backgrounds in that. So it's, again, a voice, it's a language. They've just changed it. They've added some slang to it. There's some twang to it. There's bases of every, where it comes from. The foundations are always going to be there. From those foundations, it's like planted in the soil, right? In the ground. If you have a garden of different types of fruit, it might, that's the strength of the roots might connect, but you're still going to have that fruit. It's going to still, you're still going to have that. But I like the garden concept because it's, rich soil in the ground. The more you plant in that ground, the richer the soil is going to be. You pick it up, you take the roots out, you replant, you regrow. In the regrowth of all of these things, there's a little bit of whatever else was in that ground. And that's just sometimes the person, not even the genre. And that's where this starts to intertwine at. We're taking the information that we have, and now we're transforming it with the people that are now speaking it, because it's a language. We should never ever forget that. It's always a language. We're talking a lot of jazz language, right? But then we're cutting it off with a sample. We're kind of slanging on it. So we throw that in the hip hop bucket. But then we're going to draw it out a little bit, right? I mean, you got so much of that happening right now. And let's transition to genres. There's country, rock, pop, and then there's now rap country. And then you got rap artists and country artists. It sounds great though, because it gives us an opportunity to listen to the stories of every person that's telling it based on their individual process and their background. You can't go wrong with that. That is our futures. As long as everyone has a voice and they choose to speak, they're going to be heard when you continue to allow all of the basics and the structures be learned. You still want to learn a little bit of country. People may not like it, but hey, why don't you like it? It's still music, right? And then we learn some jazz. You need to learn some jazz, even if you're not going to be titled as a jazz artist, R&B artist. Let's take gospel for a second, right? That genre. It's a mixture of blues, jazz, funk, right? Stop playing. At least. And then you got somebody's just about to riff off of it. Hella riffs in gospel. Hella riffs in gospel. Hella sheds and chops. We go bananas on it. We go bananas on the licks. And even in the singing vocally, right? It's all there because we're listening, we're hearing based on what we feel. It feels good to be creative. The genres are just being more creative. That's why there's neo soul, right? There's always these cross pollizations of them, because once pollen hits the air, right, it's flowing. This and analogies, right? It's in the air. Once it connects with something else and it hits another plant, you know what I'm saying? So it touches it a little bit, right? A little bit of this gets mixed in with a little bit of that, a little bit though. And then it grows, and then it maybe morphs into something else, because we got to get used to hearing it. We got to get, it develops into a popular thing. Once it's popular, then more people will gravitate to it. So that's the mixture. As soon as it hits like the mass popularization, and people are, hearing it more. Maybe someone is paying for it to be played on the radio more. Who cares? Once you hear it more and it's there, you're going to gravitate to it if you like it, if it feels good, if it touches your heart, touches your soul, if the words make sense. It's not just the music. It is sometimes the lyrics, but it's just not, because jazz not just sing. You can learn how to sing in a jazz capacity, right? It's not just playing it. So learning those swings and learning those tones and those notes and seeing what pairs well together is very important. And that's what the pairing of it is, the new genre. How did you pair that? Oh, that sounded nice. Wow, you did that. And then you'll take an idea and then recreate the idea so it sounds like that, but it's not that, but it reminds you of that. It's that feeling that it's doing. You've taken that feeling and that vibe, man. Vibe is key to me, very key to me. So it's going to vibe central in the sense of, can you pair it well? How creative can you be? How well are you? How good were you when you listen to that and you try to make it and recreate it? Were you really good at interpreting that? Okay, then that's going to transition to your music and then to your listeners. If it really wasn't that great and you thought you had something, but it's not, you didn't hone it in yet, then, it's cool, do your thing. But when it really you really get it and it's locked in, you're going to have a lot of listeners.
Yep.
Yeah, that's game. That boy Clay be bringing us to church, huh?
Mhm.
Bringing us to church. So I feel like everybody kind of spoke on genre. Is there anything anybody would like to add on, like, what is genre and where is genre going to be 10 years from now? Is genre going to be irrelevant? Is the pairing going to be the new genre? What's it going to be? If I want to see if Joy or Bennett have any thoughts before I move on.
I think one thing on that, it's already, because Clay was talking about, it's people, and I really like the way you put it like that. It's not neo soul artist who brings a new funk feel, like, it's really people. And I'm even seeing that in people's bios already. Frank Ocean writing style with a Michael Jackson sound. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are using people as references already. So I can't tell you what it's going to be in 10 years, because I'm trying to figure out for myself right now. But it's definitely going to be much more intricate. That's for sure. And people might be the way. I'm seeing that right now. So
thank you.
If anything, it's going to get more dynamic. The diversity is just going to be that much more widespread. Because as we've seen, I think just in musical trends and how it's developed, somebody wrote in the chat, they said Stevie Wonder has influenced so many musicians. I mean, where was music when Stevie was, bringing mostly funk and soul? But now, like, I just saw he's on a record with Nas and PJ Morton. So, right.
But Stevie was playing jazz though.
Exactly.
See?
Exactly.
And he was feeling that joint.
Yeah.
I mean, he could read, but he was reading through Braille. But like, think about it. He had to use his ears.
Yeah.
No, for real though.
Stating facts. He had to use his ears, bro.
That man sings a mean sunny side of the street.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard that record, Joy?
No,
yeah,
it's
the little Stevie Wonder singing. Grab your coat, grab your hat, baby. Like, hey, come on. But yeah, it's just gonna get more widespread. That's all it hasn't, right? It hasn't reduced since Stevie was playing jazz and then was playing, R&B stuff. It hasn't reduced. It's just been, the soil has just been getting more and more rich. So if we can make one prediction, I guess it's pretty general, but it's just going to be, I would think, more likely abundant.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that was a dynamite analogy that Clay said, huh? When he brought out the garden and the soil. Yo, I'm over here writing poetry.
No, for real.
I'm about to come out with the album, the CreaTV Presents Is That Jazz Panel album. Nah.
Yeah.
But I do have a question with everything becoming so with everything becoming so shared and like so kind of paired together. What does that mean for like the traditional sounds of genres that we have had, like the polarized sound, right? The the purest sounds of the art forms. You know, what's going to happen to the purest sound of like gospel music, or the purest sounds of jazz music? Those, for lack of a better term, you know, I know y'all know what I'm talking about when I say like those pure sounds where you have the purest, even the pure hip hop sounds, you know, where people are like, oh, you got to rap like this. Like, what's going to happen to those genres? Are they going to ever disappear, or do they have enough strength like to maintain? Because I feel like those genres are still the wells that people pull from. They might not be the wells that everybody likes to listen to, but it's the wells that people pull from to put into their music. So what's going to happen to those pure sounds? And this question is not for anybody in particular. So whoever wants to jump into it.
Yo, that's a very good question, man, because we're talking about now the evolution of the sounds of music. I mean, real talk. And I like to internalize and interpret, you know, what the questions are and look at it from, you know, a broader perspective, you know, bird's eye view in a sense of over the years, especially when we go back into different styles of music and how well they've been blended today with certain artists. Because what happens sometimes is when it's the purest form, if that's the only thing, then where's your creativity? We're just all following the same form. But knowing those forms and playing those forms are still, I believe, will still have its place, because that's your backbone and your foundation of it. And maybe, I'm going to compare this to one thing, and I think you might all agree. I'm going to compare it to DJing music. You're playing different styles of music, right? And you're mixing it in. Now we found today you got more remixes on songs, way more remixes, and we like that. We like hearing that old tune and a new verse on top of it, right? It's exactly what we're doing. We cross over and we do things to make people remember. I was just doing it last night. I'm finding remixes on purpose, or I'll create a remix, or I'll create just a drive on another song, on a Tainted Love, right? It was Tainted Love. I made it, you know, dun, 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 and I just kept the drive right there. Dun, 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 dun. And I didn't know if it was going to work, but I did it, and I'll be playing it, and I see people say it going like this. Mm-hmm. So I got this consistent drive on that song, just changed it with just the kick drum. That was it.
Yeah.
It makes you feel a certain way. It's still there. That song still exists. I can play the original song just as it is. Just a slight variation made it feel like more of a drive to it. Like, okay, which helps me now transition to more of a driving song for my next song to play. In my opinion, that's like life. That's like the music. It's going to go with a certain wave, and you're going to go over the hill on another thing. Just say, oh, all right, here's another valley we can look at to create something new. Let's build on that structure. That structure is still there, though. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think the music that we've heard sampled, right? A lot of the music lives through samples that people hear today. Now, the live elements of it, and let's bring it back to jazz. The live elements are still being taught. And you got Terrace Martin that's doing it, Glasper that's doing it, right? Terrace Martin, and Glasper, they're killing it right now. They got some #1 hits. So you think about it, these are actual musicians. Terrace is playing on keys, he's playing sax, he's in the studios with live music. So live music isn't going anywhere. It's actually being played even more now. There's dips in it in the recordings, but picking up and learning the instrument is always going to be like a special thing. It's always going to be a special thing. So guess what what are you going to learn if you pick up an instrument? You're not just going to go blank, 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 blank. Man, what are you doing? What are you doing? Go learn how to do what to do. Go listen to some recordings. Pick one artist, pick something to give you back to the structure, right? And then you're going to start, if you keep diving in, you're about to see, who did that artist listen to? That's the best thing anybody can do. If you're not going to a school, which a school is going to teach you this anyway, listen to the artist that you like, and then go listen to what that artist listened to. Follow that line. Keep going backwards. That way you're going to speak, you're going to prepare yourself forward by doing that, because you're looking at the history. Questlove does this like a master. The master, right? He just won an Oscar on that his documentary for this, right? He's going back. Questlove is an encyclopedia. You know what I mean? He's going to tell, oh, that song, that sample came from this, and this. Jazz is, man, come on, man. Jazz is such a beautiful genre because it was improvisational. Because it went here, there. Miles used to say, just go with it, man. Miles Davis get on stage as bad as he was and say, just go with it. What do you mean you just go with it? And if you messing up, he like, come on, man. So that means you got to do your homework.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Somebody else say something. You know me, I'll talk all day.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I'm with it. Like, I think I often see jazz purists get so scared that it's gonna be lost. Like, oh, nobody really knows this music like I do. Like, oh, nobody's listening. And I remember Jason Derulo put out a song that took What You Say, that you only meant well, the Imogen Heap song. And I was mad because I was like, I was 6 years old listening to this song. Everyone's singing this. They don't know who Imogen Heap is. They don't know if she's a synth mastermind. I was so angry. But also, if someone really wanted to know, they could just, we have the internet now.
Yeah.
Just Google it, look at the song listing. And even before the internet, in my classroom at San Jose State, they had rocks with the original writings of music, like imprinted clay rocks of how they would notate music. And of course, like that, like I will say, I got to give props to institutions for having that. But there are roles for people to preserve the original art form. We could still go listen to a 70s disco song. I mean, talking about before jazz, we can go listen to like the songs they would sing on the plantation and all the blues calls and all that. There's recordings on the internet. And like you were saying, when people are sampling jazz, they're going to the original tracks. They're going to like Art Blakey and going deep into his archive. So not only is it people, and those people might not have gone to jazz school, even care about jazz. They're like, let me just pick something jazzy. This came up, and now they're down the rabbit hole of their YouTube recommended just being all the classic jazz tracks. So I think I don't think we have to be worried because, again, everything's on the internet. And also there are people who want to play that role. I think us here, we want to be the developers of the next sound of the future.
Yeah.
But there's people who want to, like Questlove. He already did his development, and now he wants to be that encyclopedia and pass everything on and put everything in these awesome videos that are easy to retain. Even Vox, sometimes they don't get it right. Sometimes they really mess up because some of their jazz ones were wrong. But there's people who are actively trying to notate all of this, and most of it is already notated, so it'll be fine. And also there are people who still want to play it like the record, so everything's gonna be okay. No one's gonna disappear. Take a deep breath. It's still on Spotify.
Those are important factors that you mentioned, though. You need people that want to play it like the record.
You do,
right? You gotta want to have those people that intertwine it. I'm just saying.
But that's where I think also arts educators need to stay aware of these things. And I would like to see it in middle schools and high schools. You see it in some, but not all. And even elementary schools, like a class, like I'm so glad, Bennet, you got a class where they were teaching music theory, but maybe an elementary school class of this is what country music sounds like. This is what disco sounds like. That would be so cute. Little like fourth graders, like, is it a country? You know, I don't know. That would be adorable.
I can't be mad at that. There's a lot you could unpack on this for sure. Malcolm, you said something about the purists or jazz purists. one thing that popped in my head that sometimes gets me irked, because I feel like there's some people that are kind of impeding progress of the music, or impeding the progress of what jazz could then next develop to. Because I like what you said, Joy. It's like us right here. Like, I think we're all kind of certainly of one mind. Like, we want to be the developers, or help see if there will be more new things to usher in with the backbone of the jazz thing that we already got. But I don't like and I go to this term, I don't like the gatekeepers, if you will, who say it will only be this way, and if you ain't gonna do it like this, shame on you. Or like that's why I said, like, trying to impede the progress of it. Because I don't know, wouldn't that get stale? Wouldn't that get, sort of, I don't know, it get too boxed in. With music, and then that spills over into fashion and all visual art and film and photography. Like, things are cyclical. Artistic things are so dang cyclical. So, like, going back to the example you just did at your gig last night, Clay, where you took Tainted Love and then started putting like house beats behind it and things like that. Like, that's all cyclical. Like, Tainted Love is, decades old, but we're going to cycle it back around, but now give you something that maybe this audience's ear is already to, because they listen to Rihanna, right? Or they listen to, right? Or they're big into Dua Lipa, whatever, right? So like allowing the natural cycles to artistically happen, while still being, I think, cognizant and being aware of the origins of it, of what came before. Like, that's beautiful right there. An artist who's probably one of the like top examples you could point to is Herbie Hancock. Ain't never been the same, like, from decade to decade, basically. Shoot, he was playing straight ahead swing behind Miles Cortez in, the late 50s and 60s. And then
you nailed that, B. You nailed that with Herbie. You nailed that.
Shoot, he ain't never been the same. Nowadays, he'll do some gigs and he ain't got no band up there because he's got a big program.
No way, bro. Oh, he's the GOAT. Because I first heard him with Corinne Bailey Rae.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, and also, just along with your point, when you were talking about Tainted Love, like, I think, I don't know when I first heard that song, but in a remix, then I'm like, where is this melody from? I really like this melody. Let me go back and figure it out. And okay, who is this band? What is this era of music I've never heard of? It's literally spreading tradition through this combination. And also, that's kind of where I start to gripe about schools, because sometimes, and I don't think it's on purpose, but sometimes in the schooling system, when you're younger, this is what happened to me. I was younger and I was just trying to be a sponge. And I got so caught up in the curriculum that I thought the curriculum was life, instead of the curriculum being a tool. And it's just a tool, So when they say in four-part choral voicings, you cannot move this note this way, that's because you're doing like choral voicings. It's not a life rule, Yeah. And some people would be like, wait, why is the third in the bass? What do you mean? We're in the future now. That was how many years ago?
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
Exactly. It's just a suggestion, really. And then even with people saying, no, I only want to use these licks, you forget those licks were breaking a different rule. Everyone you're taking these licks from said, no, I don't want to move the 7 up to the 8. I'm going to do a chromatic turnaround over it. You know what I mean? It's all, the tritone sub is breaking the biggest rule. They said, let me play the devil's inversion, or what is it? Devil's interval.
Yeah, the devil's interval. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally breaking the biggest rule. So
that's the key thing right now, though. Think about it. And now we're going to go technical real quick. I mean, for the music ears that are out there, that's what you do. You take things that you're not supposed to be putting together. And think about it, if you're playing keys, B, you probably know this too. I mean, you both y'all know this because y'all play keys. You're like, here's something like, what if I go here?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll change it a little bit. I mean, we all know one person that does this live all the time is my buddy Michael Tiny Lindsay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can't have this jazzy type of conversation without recognizing a player that really changes and feels and just goes deep into it. I'm sitting on stage with him playing drums like, dude, are you kidding me? He will take things that they're not supposed to go together and he will put them together. And you'd be like, dang, you're doing that over that? You're doing this over that? I've seen keyboard players play and go,
Yeah.
you know, I'm seeing cats that's on the gig going guitar like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
That to me, that's an evolution, right? But obviously that takes a massive amount of skill, right? That takes years of experience doing things, a lot of listening, a lot of training, a lot of devoting. No one always has to be like that. Just as a reference to what we're saying, it's nice to see key people like that. I've known there's drummers that are like that, right? They can manipulate your beats and your patterns and bring your song alive in a certain way. You're like, oh my God, it never sounded like this until you played on it. So many directions you can go. Jazz was super like, what direction are we going? And then we go there and then it moves and we're like you're talking on stage.
Yes.
You're moving, but you have your construct. Let's keep our structures.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll fly off the structure and then make everybody by coming right back to where it started at.
Yeah, some of the notes that I'm taking from like the question about like what's going on with the purist styles, what's going on with the purists or the gatekeepers, which was very, very good term, Bennet. And I think one thing that you said, Bennet, too, is you said that like basically if we were to keep these styles in their pure form and only teach these, then they will become predictable, which kind of loses the basis of jazz music, right? It kind of loses its essence if it stays there. So definitely in the interest of time, I do want to pose a question to all three of you as like a final question, and then allow you all to do the self plugs. Let us know what your IG is. Let us know how to find you. Let us know where you're performing next. We do have a question from Veronica, and I'm glad we're kind of technical because now we're going to get kind of historic. And I think it's a damn good question. I'd really like to know your opinions as well. Also, right now, if there's anybody else in the building who would like to throw a question there, let us know. You can just put in the Q&A. I'll get it answered. But so question for you all. Do you all feel that ragtime, with its improvisational style for pianists, was the beginning of jazz?
I feel like yes, but also yes and. You know what I mean? I think that's a really, really great example because it's kind of something that wasn't jazz yet, that was really emulating the sound, but also I believe the like original ragtime was like straight, right? Straight eights. So it didn't have that swing feel. So, but it's the same thing with the genre blending. There's so many different influences on it that is a really key piece, but it's like not quite the whole puzzle, That's what I see.
Okay.
I mean, ragtime is, I think if we're talking geography, right? It's an American concept, right? Or something that evolved here in America, but there's a whole lot of other elements that I think have fed into what have been now like called jazz traditional elements, especially from a rhythmic side, that are way more responsible to African culture, right? So traditions there, especially from the percussion side and the groove side, like those are all, those are all, I think, a heavy, right, a heavy contributor. I mean, Malcolm, I know you could sound off on that side. You being very, very much the scholar of the history of African drumming, and then how it has spilled into lots of other genres. But like, maybe just if we're talking ragtime, maybe the ragtime has, I think, like you were saying, Joy, is maybe more of a player in the way it became eventually more swing music, and then like what could then arguably progress into like Dixieland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I think there's some other, I agree, the yes and. I think there's some other responsibilities that have helped then make jazz music more formative. So yeah, definitely give some praise and give some credit to the ragtime contribution, and then look to some other developments that happened around other musical styles, or even just instrumentation, that could then inform where jazz got its legs.
And side note, for jazz pianists, it becomes an even like bigger role as well. Just want to add that, like, just voicings, hand positions. Yeah.
It's one of those stylistic things, in my opinion, right? It changed the way, there's a style to it. There's a certain way that you're going to interpret it, and there's a growth to it, right? So it's not just this, there's voicings, right? You're adjusting and expanding. So it's, I don't know, I think you had it right, Bennett. Like, you're pulling from different places when you look at the formative ways of jazz, right? It wasn't just this one thing that changed it or makes it feel the way it feels. I mean, come on, man, you put a swing on certain things, there's a style, man. No, we could reggae this, we could swing it up. No, I need to swing that a little bit on the rhythm side. Swing a little bit, I mean, open up a little bit more. But what does that mean when you say open up? That means have a little bit more fun with it, be a little bit more creative with it. And that was being more creative with it, right? At some point, you were just being way more creative, but yet it was in a style that continued to grow. You see what I'm saying?
No doubt.
So it's you still have certain forms, but there's certain styles that kind of take over a little while, for over a period of time and years, and they form a thing called this. We call it ragtime.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Reason why? Because after a while, if there's a certain way it can grow, there's a certain, so many people that have done it and played it, and it just kept stretching and moving like that. And it's as far as that concept wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, appreciate y'all expertise. So it sounds like for Veronica, you asked the question. It sounds like if you wanted to, it sounds like you could study ragtime, you could study swing, you could study, you said Dixieland, Bennett. Right? So yeah, sounds like the answer to the question is yes, but ...
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So I have one more question that I want to pose you all. I feel like this whole panel has been flowing very, very well. I feel like it's been very easy to follow. It's been very inspiring. Some of the questions I asked, a lot of the questions I asked were questions I wrote down based off of some things that y'all said. So I didn't even get through a quarter of the list of the questions that I initially put down. So, but this last question, excuse me if it feels like it's a little bit off flow, but I do want to give you all this space because I feel like it's very important. You all are definitely heavy hitters and are going to go down as legends out here in this area for the music. It's just the truth. It's just the truth, and you also are, like, as mentioned before, you are like the contemporary artists who I feel are actually like pushing the art form forward. I would like to know, just individually, and this is going to be kind of like your last statements too. So I would like to know individually, what does our local community need to push this art form forward. You know, what is holding the community back, or what does our community need? What can we do to help push this art form forward? And anybody can just popcorn on in. After this, I'm going to have you all do the shameless self promos. So we'll save the shameless self promos for last.
Well, yeah. I mean, I kind of want to start it off because I'm definitely in a room full of legends, and I really want to make sure I can sit and take in your responses. But I was talking to a friend about this who's more on the event side the other day. And I think what we really need is spaces. We need multiple spaces to express ourselves, and in various ways. So, like it's from the ground up. So what I see right now in the jam space is there's the 5 Point session that's been really going strong. I was really lucky to be a part of that team for a little bit. And they really encourage, that's like, I think one of the only jazz jams in San Jose now. Mm-hmm. And they also expanded to be more diverse genres with the hosts they choose. They have a different host who's like from San Jose or the Bay Area every single week. And I was also doing the Nirvana Soul open mics, and I think there's an open mic in Red Rock in Mountain View. And so having like those first level places for people to come in and express themselves, but also we need more spaces for concerts. You know, I know San Jose Jazz just is doing their break room, which is a really cool, intimate stage for live streaming. Art Boutique has an amazing venue with great sound. And there's a bunch of other venues in San Jose, but I think just adding more, having more bars that will have artists, having more spaces that are open to jams. And that way you can really explore everything. Because sometimes I won't want to go to 5 Points because I don't feel like playing a standard. You know what I mean? And it's not on them. That's just like, that's the scene. And people want to go play standards, so they deserve that. But having at Nirvana Soul, you can't really host a full band. So I couldn't bring in a contemporary electronic 6-piece band sort of sound there. But there's got to be a place where that can happen on a weekly basis. And you'll see that in like New York. So for me, it's literal real estate. And hopefully through working with more people who know more about like the city structure and about like getting grants, we can do more of that. That's something I'm trying to learn more about, but I think uniting as like not a coalition, a collective, I don't know, but trying to activate spaces in that sort of way, especially now while Silicon Valley is growing and growing fast. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so
Love
much
it.
for talking about the venues too, because I'm not a panelist, so I'm trying to give the space, but I know I once again, I know I selected the right people. I'm glad you said a lot of what you said. Thank you, Joy. Who's next?
What is the need? Can't argue the venues, no doubt. Can't argue that we got to have places for it to be heard, places to play. So I guess, in addition to it, I think this community needs to have more coverage. I'll say that. I think it needs to be more covered and more highlighted. Mm-hmm. No doubt will live performance do that. And I don't know, it deserves to be covered and have the light shining on it, exposure. And I think that does so that gets into more talks of, things outside of being the responsibility or being put on the ask of the musicians to do. We as musicians already got plenty on our plate to be recording, writing,
that's facts,
producing and releasing and performing the music. So I think it's like, call to action to the folks who are journalists, part, people who are part of the scene, writing articles, blogs, doing podcasts, doing television, radio, doing social media, you name it. Because a lot of times it falls on the artists themselves. Now, here's what they didn't teach you in school, right? To go all the way full circle back. They didn't. Although I'm lucky, I do feel grateful. I had the cat who was the jazz department chair where I went in Sonoma State, on like the first or second class of improv. He handed everybody a paper, and it was nothing related to any chart or song or anything. It said the 10 things to be a successful gig man. It said, like, at this time it was still kind of, social media hadn't crossed over yet into the big boom, but it said, have a business card, have your resume ready. Know 5 people, like, he's like, know the editor of the arts section at San Francisco Chronicle and such, like, which was so cool that actually got passed around and did that, because I had nothing. It was hip, but it was hip. I still got that thing tacked up on my wall.
Oh yeah. Nice.
But this calls on, for us as artists, it's it can take a toll on trying to be, the composer and the performer and the act and part of the act, and then also be like, dang, now I got to create my own flyer, or I gotta, I gotta go see if I could try to book this interview or somewhere to try to promote it. But it would be great if there's that unifying element of the artists, the artist community, and the other people who have the chops in media and in like doing things like in the coverage world, and in the way that it can be more, it could be more in the public eye and in the know of the public.
And I think there are people who want to do that, but you said the connection between the two, because they don't know where to go. They've been working with journalists, not with musicians. So that's
I also just want to second. I think having people in the music scene that are not musicians.
Yes.
They still hold that same passion for the music, but that are not musicians. I'm reminded of going to a lot of shows, doing a lot of hip hop shows around the area. And when I would go to a hip hop show in Santa Cruz, it would actually be refreshing, because there's a lot of people out there who are coming out to support the show that are not a musician themselves. They have no ulterior motive. They didn't come to meet you. They didn't come to collab. They didn't come to give out flyers. They just came because they're fans of the music. So I think that was very powerful. Bennet, like, journalists, we're the promoters, just more exposure, more highlighting to the scene. Very, very powerful points.
I'm sorry, one more thing. That's also what I'm trying to say with these venues too. These are the nonprofit, and obviously there's music nonprofits already that are doing work, but even more like CreaTV is doing its thing, but more people creating spaces and writing grants. And those not musicians, business people, because I cannot write. I can write music. That's it. So we need that outside help too.
Great point, Joy.
Respect. Clay, can you, once again, brother, hey, bring us home. What does our community need to push this music moving forward?
Well, I'm very much tied to this community in a certain way. I have my own business that I choose to look for the same thing that you guys are talking about, venues and places that we can play with, talking to owners directly so that we can get more people playing. That's something that's been a passion of mine for the past 10 years, actually. And not everybody sees that vision. I'm doing it from, Joy, as you stated, the musician standpoint. And Bennet, I share the same thing and said, how do we get this in a broader view, broader scope, so more people see it? One of it is, you play in more places. I agree 100% that it would be very nice to see our sort of newspaperish or news, channeling or any other broad scope that reaches a majority of the community, tap into the music industry. And then we got a little bit of that with Urban Vibrancy. They're trying to create more spaces, as I am as well, trying to create more spaces for us to play at. I've been a part of the Jazz Jam. I'm looking and currently working with some of the players there to get people more work, because the more you work, the more inspired you will be. The more you see, as Bennet stated, the more you see the people within your community. Oakland does as well. They'll take a musician and put them on top of my cousin Tiny. My cousin is one of them. Kev Choice, he's one of them that they will put up in the community. You will see he's talented, right? He's focused on doing something with the community. You see Tiny Lindsay, Michael Tiny Lindsay on bass, in front of like the Chase Center or something like that. He didn't even know he was there. There is a gap, as Joy stated. I think that's collectively we need multiple pieces. Someone like myself that, yes, I gig, I do manage, right? I'm help with the band management. I help with entertainment management for venues. I want to do that. I'm going to put my time into doing something like that. I don't get a gig just for myself. I get gigs for myself and other people. I'm always thinking about how many more people can I get working. So I'm in that arena. I'm directly the guy that's doing that, exactly what both of you guys are saying. There is another piece. We do need to have the respect and the visual side, so people not only know, but people can get inspired. People need to be inspired. People need to be motivated to be creative. Think about it. If you're inspired and you're motivated to be creative, and you see a person, you physically see the people that are doing that within your community with music, you're going to like that. That's why the non-musician will come in and support, because they can feel the inspiration, they're motivated, and they can see and feel the creativity. These are very simple things.
Sorry, you actually booking a gig, you booked Tracy Cruz at like a restaurant or bar, and I was playing on that gig, and then seeing you and being like, oh, you're drumming? And you're like, no, I booked the gig. That was the first time I was like, so you... And you're like, I don't know what you were doing that night. Maybe you're headed off to another gig. But I was like, so you don't have to. Oh, there's a bigger picture. And it's only because I've been lucky to meet people like you and see other people who are musicians, but also doing the industry side heavily, that I even know that opportunity exists, So letting people know that you can work in music and do a lot of different things in it, and still have time to be a musician as well. That's the thing that I find really inspiring. Like, y'all create shows for other people, and then you make your show, and it's different level. It's amazing. So yeah, I agree. Letting people know that it's possible.
Hey, it's for the culture, right?
Yeah.
For the culture. I feel like it's very important that we do see, and it seems like, Clay, this is like you're a testament to it. But it's like you see the area, you see the jazz music from like an outside perspective. Like we want San Jose, we want the South Bay, we want the Bay Area. We want it to be like a jazz mecca. We want it to have good music, not just like Clay Bandy everywhere, right? But like if you get a gig, like even Clay was trying to book a gig when me and Joy were talking, like before the panel started. He's over here trying to get, y'all know, I don't want to let this gig go, y'all. We got to keep it in the, he's living it. He's about that life. I bet you right now he has like 8 text messages that he's trying not to look down.
No, for real.
But
so it goes, man.
I would say it really would. I am optimistic for the future, because it would be really beautiful to bring that energy to the South Bay area. I went to the Big Frida and Tank and the Banga show, a couple weekends ago. And when I was in the show, first of all, it was at the Ritz, which is like one of San Jose's few venues. Not even the best, but still at least like it's a venue. And I was there, and I saw some friends from San Francisco. But they're like, oh yeah, we couldn't make it in San Francisco last night, so we came to San Jose to go to the show. I seen some friends from Santa Cruz who were like, oh yeah, Big Frida, Tank and the Bangas, yeah, they're this close. Yeah, we're coming over the hill to San Jose to go to the show. And then it just made me realize how rare that is like, yeah, we do have venues, and we our venues are very local, you know, like when you go to a show, it's going to be people from San Jose supporting. But to actually like have more venues like back in the day with Avalon and Voodoo Land, you know, back in the day, to have venues where people from the Bay, people from like Sacramento, people from Santa Cruz are coming into San Jose to enjoy music, to experience some music. I'm just that inspired me, and then hearing y'all talk really inspired me as well. So we're at the end of it now. Veronica put in another question, but she was kind of wondering if you know, she could contact you all about just about performing, about just about anything. Veronica is a very great person, beautiful voice, musician herself.
Ooh.
Very serious about her music. I had the pleasure of helping her compile an album. So a great person to know. So I want to give y'all this chance right now. Again, individually, can you please do your shameless self promos? We want it all, you know, whatever you're comfortable with, however you're comfortable communicating, let people know. Any shows that are coming up, any events that we should look out for, please let us know. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and lead off here. And I just want to say, you know, thanks again, Malcolm, for putting this all together and bringing us on. And it's so cool to do this with y'all, because we you know, I know we're all tight and we're all homies, and we get to do this, you know, mostly around where we're also going to have a responsibility on our various instruments to do this. So to get to hang and do this and just straight up, you know, just shoot the breeze on this and get down to brass tacks on this stuff is like really cool to do this with you, Malcolm, Clay, Joy. It's really cool. It's fresh to do that. Now we don't have to go in and play, okay, 1, 2, 1.
Yeah.
No,
All the conversation.
right. So I'm up on Instagram at Bennet Jazz Keys. That's BENNETT Jazz JAZZ Keys KEYS. Bennet Jazz Keys on the Instagram platform. I just released an album called Grown back on March 1st, and that's all up on the Spotify, the Apple Musics, the YouTubes, the Napster even. It's legit now. So you can you know, you can go cop that and stream it all down your playlist. Feel free to add that thing to however you like to listen to your music, in your car, on your phone, on your watch, whatever. And let's see, I got a residency. I play with the Ill Alliance at 55 South every Sunday night in downtown San Jose. A venue that does hold it down. Gratitude to it. That holds it down for live music. You can find me all around downtown San Jose playing, from 55 South, SB2, Camino Brewery and such. Some things I got coming up. I'll be playing coming up. I'll be playing with let's see, rapper King Tahoe at Crybaby in Oakland on April 28th. I'll be playing with Dale Keano at Tabard Theater on Sunday afternoon, April 24th. And I'm trying to think, what am I doing for myself? I don't know. Yeah, go to the counter. You could check, actually, you know what? So I don't have to rack my brain on it. You can go find my calendar of places where I'll be performing and whatnot on BennetRothNewell.com. BENNETT Roth ROTH Newell NEWELL.com. No hyphen in the address, unlike what you see on my driver's license, my government name.
If y'all don't mind, like Caitlin's been going hard with the chat, but since you all know your IGs probably off the top and your website, if you don't mind just typing them into the chat, that way people can just click right onto it. Thank you, Bennet. And who is next?
I'll just jump in. Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. I feel the same. Like Bennett's saying, this is the conversations we'll just be having, these really great conversations. And then you got to set the gig, right? And I haven't been gigging lately. So this is really refreshing for me to speak to musicians and talk about these sorts of things. And yeah, I do, before I even plug, because I really don't have any shows going on because I've been in the shed, like just developing the new album, developing the new sound. And I actually took most of my stuff down because it's going to be I'm going a whole different direction than I planned. Like a year or two ago, and even before that. So Instagram's the best way to find me. Look out for the album Energies coming out soon. Yes. And since I don't have gigs to plug, because who knows when that opening show is, I do want to recognize again, if you're trying to learn music in a more contemporary sense and a more live sense, please go to 55. That's just go and take notes. I swear, because I was trying to sneak in before I was 21, getting in trouble. It was, oh man, that's really the place to go. It's talking about spaces for musicians to come together. That's it. And I do, just really quick, you were talking about the Taking the Vegas show. I want to say curation is what will bring people to San Jose, because I know it's not always for the music. That are sometimes businesses' best interests aren't the actual music. They're trying to look for ticket sales. And they're trying to look for how to bring people to San Jose. You get a local opener and then a really crazy curation. I'm just saying, we saw it happen. And that's all I would like to say. Thank you for having me.
What about Nirvana Soul?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Plug it all. Let us know.
Hi, bad. Nirvana Soul has open mics from Wednesdays to Fridays. Yeah, we have a really small stage, but we're just trying to bring the community together. So we got comedy on Wednesdays, poetry on Thursdays, and music on Friday nights. And it's been really cool because it's been, especially the poetry nights, it's been a huge gathering of minds. I did not realize the need for a poetry space out in San Jose, but and we encourage like of all styles. So if you're a rapper and you want to do your song without the beat, please come, please share with us. And yeah, Wednesdays through Fridays, 7 to 9 p.m.
You're killing that thing, Joy. That Nirvana have been popping off.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Clay, where can we find you, and what's coming up next?
All right, well, I got the IGs, Clay, CLAY _Bandy, just like candy, but with a B as in boy, just like candy. So oh, you can find me, let's see, I gotta look at my calendar here. So I'm on the 24th. I gotta write stuff down.
Right.
On the 24th, I'm doing Sofa Street Fair 7 to 8. The stage is between First and San Salvador. Next week on the 28th, I'm DJing at Sushi Confidential 7 to 10 p.m. And then the 29th, I'm DJing at Cedar Room, which is in the Prune Yard, by Prune Yard Cinemas. That's all you got to type in if you want to look it up. Prune Yard Cinemas. You're going to see we're right next door. We're the bar for Prune Yard Cinemas. I do have some other live stuffs happening. A couple of them actually I'm working today, but it's a private event. But I got another private event on the 30th. So I'm still working. I'm active. I do have some residencies. We're working out how much band and versus DJ I'll be doing there. But I do have a little plug for one of the places, the Old Wagon Saloon. There's going to be a live band there. I'm going to have live bands there every single Thursday, unless there's like a buyout or a private event. So definitely giving you a call, Benny. Definitely giving you a call, Joy. I know, B, you play a lot on SP2, but I'm definitely looking to work with more people in the community. And that's the whole goal and purpose of getting these other places together. Looking to have some live music at Sushi Confidential, looking to have live music at Cedar Room, and doing, obviously it's going to be on that, sort of Thursday to Sunday type of range or line of a scope of days. But hey, you know what? If we can, as we get those together, yes, I want to move toward Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Mondays, possibly, because those are some good days as well. But I'm super duper active in our community on trying to get more places for people to play at. I love doing that. It's part of what I like, what I've learned how to do. And so, yeah, if nothing else, catch me on the Instagram, on the IG. I'm always posting something. Maybe start a podcast. I don't know.
Hey, yes.
Come on.
Right on. Again, I really like see y'all as the heavy hitters and like the culture creators out here in my area. I'm very proud to even live in the same area as y'all, and I'm proud to like show you all to like all my outside family that are not from here. So I know y'all are busy. I really thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your expertise and sitting here talking with me. I want to thank everybody who logged in. Shout out to my dad, because my dad logged in a little later, but he is in the building. And once again, I want to thank you, Caitlin, so much for like the chat monitoring and helping me out with the technical everything, so much blessings, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and just like play some music, play the flyer, and y'all don't gotta go home, but you gotta log up out of the Zoom. All
Can't stay here.
So blessings, everybody. Thank you so much. Peace.
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 Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.